Sanding sucks. We all know it. Even though we might try to convince ourselves it's therapeutic or whatever, let's be real. It can be time-consuming and tedious. That's why today I'm sharing my top sanding accessories that'll make sanding suck just a little less. And some that are just a little weird too. When starting out in woodworking, I would always think that my sandpaper was finished way sooner than it actually was. That is, until I discovered the equivalent of a magic eraser. When your paper starts getting clogged up, simply turn on the sander and press the cleaning block into the abrasive to clean it. It's like magic. It's practically brand new sandpaper. Not only does it work for wood, but it also works well for cleaning off epoxy, which is great because epoxy clogs up sanding discs really fast. But after a quick cleaning, it's ready to be reused. Now, you can use any type of rubber apparently. According to the videos you see online, you can even use an old running shoe. But cleaning blocks are relatively cheap and last a really long time. I've had this one for years. I'll leave a link to the one I used down below. This next one may seem a bit basic, but this simple hack has been a real game changer for me. Cut a piece of jar liner to use as a backer whenever you're sanding. The idea is to protect the backside while you're sanding the opposite face so you don't end up with a bunch of scratch marks on the back. In the past, I used to use bench cookies, but they would always end up moving around with the vibrations and ultimately fall out of position, and the workpiece would just fall right off. Quite frustrating and not practical. Some people like to use moving blankets, but I love this solution. Not only does it cushion and protect the back, it also helps the workpiece to stick in place. The holes allow the sawdust to escape, and it's easy to store when you're done without taking up too much space. So next time you're at Princess Auto, pick up a roll of non-stick jar liner. Trust me, you won't regret it. Speaking of Princess Auto, here's another nifty sanding attachment I found there: drill sanding attachments. Now, if you've ever watched any of my recent router tray videos or made any router trays using my router templates, you'll know how handy these can be to sand the inside of small compartments. They attach to any drill just like a regular bit would, which makes them so convenient to use. They do, however, require some practice to find the perfect balance of pressure and speed, otherwise you'll get swirl marks. But once you figure that out, it's fantastic. They sell hook and loop paper from 40 grit all the way up to 320 grit. I got the basic kit that comes with 3 sizes, 1 1/4, 2 inch, and 3 inch. You can also get backer pads to provide more cushioning, minimize swirl marks, and get into those angled curves. Even though sometimes I wish I had a dedicated 2-inch Orbital sander, this comes pretty close. This little guy is definitely one of my favorite sanding accessories. I love it because of its small size and the shape of its grip handle, which makes it really easy to fit into any little corner. It also has a little flex so it easily molds to contours. It comes in 3 different grip papers, 80, 120, and 220. And they're a hook and loop style, so you can just peel them off, toss it, and replace it with a new one whenever you need to. The only downfall is that with the surface of the paper being so small, you need to switch them out frequently. But you can buy refills and it's still totally worth it. Like I said, I find myself reaching for this little guy all the time. Definitely one of my favorite sanding accessories, hands down. Okay, this next one is going to sound like a plug because, well, it sort of is. Probably the best sanding accessory you can make for yourself is a sanding cabinet to store all your sanding discs and accessories. And I have plans available for this build on my website, and that includes the pull-out trays and the French cleat wall attachment, and I'll leave a link to that down below this video. Okay, this next one isn't exactly an accessory, it's a sander in itself. But I was just so intrigued by this thing that I just had to include it. To be honest, I'm not exactly sure what to do with this thing. I've never used a sander that looks like this, and I saw it though, I thought it was cool, and it must be really useful for something. I just haven't figured out what exactly that is yet. It's a belt/file sander with an articulating handle. The belt is really narrow, only about 1/2 inch wide, so I suppose this would allow you to reach into really tight spots, almost like sanding with a finger. I've seen it made by several companies, but this one was only $100, which is much cheaper than all the others I saw, and the reviews were actually pretty good. It's made by Wen, which I don't know much about, but it's the same company that makes the air filtration unit that I have. It says that the auto-tracking design allows for automatic alignment of the sanding belts without any need for adjustments. If that's true, that sounds pretty good to me. So definitely seems like a cool tool, and I'm sure I'll find plenty of uses for it around the shop. Or it may turn out to be just another gadget that I don't use. I'll let you be the judge of that. Okay, this next one, if I'm being honest, I never use, but I should. Multi-tools like this one often come with a bunch of different attachments, like this triangle, which is a detail sander, and basically turns any multi-tool into a mouse sander. It can be super practical for small parts or inside corners, and going anywhere that a bigger orbital sander just can't go. So while you may be familiar with this attachment already, I think I found something even better. It's called a sanding finger or finger sanding pad. And as you can see, it's even smaller than this triangle and reaches out a little further, which means you can get into really small, tiny little nooks with this guy and get into those tight corners no problem. Simply use the Allen key to mount the attachment to your multi-tool. The sandpaper is hook and loop just like most sanders are. You can buy both attachments and the sandpaper in a kit on Amazon, and I'll leave a link down below. Orbital sanders are my go-to, but when you're trying to sand inside corners, I don't need to tell you that doesn't work. I usually try to hand sand the inside corners or ideally pre-sand the parts, but that's not always possible. Sometimes there's glue squeeze out or whatever. So I'm definitely not saying you should run out and buy a multi-tool, but if you're like me, and I know a lot of you are like me, and happen to have a multi-tool laying around because one day you convinced yourself you absolutely needed to have this tool, but you never actually use it, well, now you finally have a good reason to use it. Do you have a backer pad on your orbital sander? This may seem obvious, but it's something that's often overlooked. We just slap a sanding disc on our sander and get to sanding. Am I right? There are different types of sanding pads. First, there's the backer pad, which is the disc that comes standard with the sander and where you'd normally attach your sandpaper. But then there are pad savers and interface pads. These can be added between the backer pad and the sanding disc for different reasons. Pad savers are slightly cushioned, which will help to absorb vibration, which in turn will lead to less fatigue and make the sander more comfortable to use, especially for long periods. The added padding will leave fewer swirl marks, and that alone makes it worth it in my opinion. Pad savers will also protect the actual backer pad from premature wear and tear. You can also get interface pads, which are even thicker and especially handy for uneven surfaces like curves, edges, or profiles. Using interface pads will reduce the risk of applying uneven pressure and altering the profile of the surface you're trying to sand. So if you've never experimented with any of these, I highly recommend it. It just might change how you feel about your orbital sander. Now, you may never ever need these, but if you're in a situation where you do, boy will you be happy to find out that they exist. These are sanding contour profiles, and if you work with any type of curve, you're going to want some of these. They're made of a flexible rubber and come in all sorts of shapes to match different profiles. Some round, some pointy, some concave, and they come in various sizes too, generally sold as a kit. Just match the contour sanding grip to your shape and wrap it with the grit of your choice, then sand away. I got them for sanding old millwork, and let me tell you, without them I would have been miserable. They're an absolute must for any trim or baseboard with any type of detail. They'll make your life just a little bit easier. Where you can store all of your sanding discs and accessories. Jeez, why is this so hard? We just slap a piece of sandpaper on our sandpaper and get to sanding. Now,